The colony ship HFY's Promise had been missing for 18 months. 312 people had vanished into the darkness between stars, and the United Earth Fleet had already written them off as dead. That was how things worked in deep space. Ships disappeared. People died. The universe was cruel and did not care about human grief, but Park Jun-ho cared. He sat alone in his quarters aboard the patrol vessel Iron Wake, staring at a photograph on his small desk. The woman in the picture was smiling, her dark hair pulled back, her eyes bright with excitement. His younger sister, Park Soyeon. She had been a xenobiologist, one of the best in her field, and she had begged him to support her decision to join the colony mission. He had told her it was too dangerous. She had laughed and called him an old warrior. Now she was gone, and he could not stop thinking about that Junho was 43 years old. He had served in the fleet for 20 years. He had seen combat, lost friends, buried soldiers under foreign skies. But nothing had ever broken him the way losing Soyeon had. Every night, he dreamed of her face. Every morning, he woke up hoping for news that never came. The fleet had searched for 3 months after the disappearance. They found nothing. No wreckage. No distress beacon. No bodies. The HFY's Promise had simply stopped existing, swallowed by the endless black. Command declared the ship lost with all hands. They held a memorial service on Earth. Junho did not attend. He could not stand there and pretend his sister was dead when his heart told him otherwise. He returned to duty because he did not know what else to do. The Iron Wake was a small ship, built for patrol and reconnaissance. Junho commanded a crew of 47, good people who had learned not to mention the colony ship around their captain. They understood his pain even if they could not fix it. On the night, everything changed. Junho was in his quarters reading mission reports when his communication officer's voice crackled through the speaker. "Captain, you need to come to the bridge. Now." Something in her voice made his blood run cold. He was on his feet and moving before he even realized it, his boots pounding against the metal floor as he ran through the narrow corridors. Kang Minji met him at the bridge entrance. She was his weapons officer, a woman with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue. She had served with him for 6 years, and he had never seen her look the way she looked now. Her face was pale. Her hands were shaking. "What is it?" Junho demanded. "A signal," Minji said. "It came through the relay stations 20 minutes ago. It's fragmented, badly damaged, but..." She stopped. She could not finish .junho, pushed past her, and walked to the communication station where Yoon Taeho sat. Taeho was his pilot, a young man with quick reflexes and a calm voice even in crisis. But now, Taeho's hands hovered over his console like he was afraid to touch it. "Play it," Junho ordered. Taeho pressed a button. The bridge filled with noise. Static crackled and popped. Then came sounds that would haunt Junho for the rest of his life. Screaming. Not one voice, but many. Women, men, children. Somewhere in the chaos, gunfire echoed. Then a voice cut through the madness, low and urgent. "This is Park Soyeon of the colony ship HFY's Promise. If anyone receives this message, please listen. We have been taken. The Korath have taken us. I am transmitting coordinates. Please come for us. They are harvesting." The message ended in static. 12 seconds. That was all. 12 seconds of hell. Junho stood frozen. His heart had stopped beating. His lungs had forgotten how to work. That voice belonged to his sister. She was alive. She had been alive when she sent that message. And she had said one word that burned itself into his brain like a brand. Harvesting. "The coordinates," he said. His voice sounded strange to his own ears. "Where do they point?" Taeho checked his console. "The Valen Expanse, Captain." Deep inside Korath Dominion territory, the bridge went silent. Everyone knew what that meant. The Korath Dominion was one of the oldest powers in the galaxy. They had controlled their region of space for thousands of years before humanity even discovered fire. They were massive creatures, 3 meters tall, with gray skin and 4 arms. They viewed humans as insects, primitive newcomers who had barely learned to travel between stars. Entering their space without permission was an act of war. "Send the signal to Earth Command," Junho said. "Send all of it. They need to hear this." He sent the message and waited. Earth Command's response came 3 hours later. It was polite, formal, and completely useless. The signal was too degraded to verify. The coordinates could be errors. A military operation in Korath space was impossible without starting a war. They advised patience and diplomatic channels. Junho read the message twice. Then he deleted it. He called a meeting in the crew mess. Only 4 people attended, the 4 he trusted most. Minji stood with her arms crossed, her jaw tight. Taiho sat quietly, his fingers tapping the table. Choi Yoonji, his chief engineer, leaned against the wall. She was small and quiet, but she could fix anything and build weapons from scrap metal. "Command won't help us," Junho said. "They're afraid of the Korath. They would rather pretend our people are dead than risk a conflict. What are you suggesting?" Minji asked. Junho looked at each of them in turn. The Hanuel's promise carried 312 colonists. Families, children, my sister. That signal proves they're still alive. It proves the Korath took them. And it proves something terrible is happening to them. I am going to find them. I am going to bring them home. And I am going to kill anyone who stands in my way. The room was quiet. "You're talking about desertion," Yoonji said softly. "You're talking about taking this ship into enemy territory without orders. We could all be executed for this." "Yes," Junho agreed. "You could. That's why I'm not ordering anyone to come. I'm asking. If you say no, I will drop you at the nearest station and continue alone. No judgment. No hard feelings. But I cannot sit here and do nothing while my sister suffers." Minji was the first to speak. "My cousin was on that ship. Her name was Han Ji-won. She was 24 years old, and she wanted to be a teacher." She straightened her shoulders. "I'm coming." Taiho nodded slowly. "I am no one on that ship. But I have served with you for 4 years, Captain. You have never asked me to follow you into hell before. The least I can do is see what hell looks like." Yoonji pushed herself off the wall. "I build things. I fix things. Maybe I can fix this." She shrugged. "Besides, someone needs to keep the engines running." Junho felt something loosen in his chest. He was not alone. "Then we leave tonight," he said. "Set a course for the Valen Expanse. Tell no one where we're going. If anyone asks, we're running extended patrols." 4 hours later, the Iron Wake slipped away from the fleet patrol routes and disappeared into deep space. Behind them, Earth continued spinning. The stars continued burning. The galaxy continued ignoring the screams of 312 humans trapped in the dark. But Park Junho was coming, and he would not stop until he found them. The journey took 11 days. 11 days of silence, of tension, of jumping at every sensor ping. The Iron Wake moved through space like a ghost, running dark whenever possible, hiding in asteroid fields and behind dead moons. Taiho flew with a skill that bordered on madness, threading the ship through gaps that should have been too small, evading creative patrol routes by margins that made everyone hold their breath. Junho barely slept. He spent his nights on the bridge, staring at the stars, thinking about his sister. What had she meant by harvesting? The word echoed in his mind like a curse. He imagined terrible things. He tried not to. He failed. On the 12th day, they found her. The Haniel's Promise hung in orbit around a small, barren moon. The ship was intact, its hull unmarked, its engines cold and silent. From a distance, it looked almost peaceful, like a sleeping giant waiting to wake up. No damage, Yoonji reported from her station. No signs of battle. Whatever happened, it wasn't a fight. Life signs? Junho asked. Minji checked her sensors. Her face told him the answer before she spoke. None. Junho closed his eyes for a moment. He had known this was possible. He had prepared himself for the worst. But knowing and feeling were different things, and right now he felt like someone had reached into his chest and squeezed his heart until it cracked. "We're going aboard," he said. Full team, armed. They docked with the colony ship through a maintenance airlock. The seal was good. The atmosphere inside still breathable. That was the first wrong thing. A ship dead in space for 18 months should not have working life support. The corridors were dark. Emergency lights flickered weakly, casting long shadows on the walls. Junho led the way with his weapon raised, his footsteps echoing in the silence. Behind him, Minji and Taiho covered the rear while Yoonji checked her scanner for threats. "Blood," Minji said suddenly. She pointed at the wall. A dark stain spread across the metal, dried and old. Below it, scratch marks gouged the surface, as if someone had clawed desperately at the wall while being dragged away. They found more blood as they moved deeper into the ship. Smears on the floor. Handprints on doors. A child's shoe, small and pink, lying alone in a corridor. But no bodies. Not a single body. "Where are they?" Taiho whispered. "Where did they all go?" Junho did not answer. He already knew. The answer was in that word his sister had spoken. Harvesting dot, they reached the cargo bay last. The doors were open, forced from outside. Inside, the massive space was empty. Every crate, every supply, every piece of equipment had been taken. But that was not what made them stop and stare. The walls were covered in writing. Names. Hundreds of names. Written in blood, in marker, in whatever the colonists could find. Men, women, children, ages, home cities. Final messages to loved ones who might never read them. One message, larger than the others, stretched across the entire back wall. "We were alive when they took US. Remember us." Junho felt his knees weaken. He reached out and touched the wall, his fingers tracing the dried blood. Somewhere in this sea of names was his sister's handwriting. He searched until he found it. Park Soyeon, age 34. Seoul. "If Junho finds this, I am alive. I love you. Come for me." He pressed his forehead against the cold metal and allowed himself 3 seconds of grief. Then he straightened, wiped his eyes, and turned to face his crew. "Yoonji, find the black box. I want every recording from the moment they entered Korath space until the last second of power." Yoonji nodded and ran for the bridge. It took her 2 hours to recover the data. The black box was damaged, some files corrupted beyond repair, but enough remained. Enough to tell the story. Enough to break their hearts. Enough to ignite their rage. They gathered in the briefing room and watched the footage in silence. The recordings began normally. Captain Song Ji-ho, a steady man with a calm voice, logged their entry into the Valen expanse. They had received permission to pass through, or so they believed. The Korath had granted them safe passage in exchange for a small fee. It was supposed to be routine. 3 days into their transit, Korath ships surrounded them. Captain Song tried to communicate, tried to understand what was happening. The Korath did not answer. They simply boarded. The footage switched to security cameras inside the ship. Junho watched as Korath soldiers flooded the corridors. Huge gray figures with 4 arms and weapons that hummed with energy. The colonists panicked. Some tried to run. Some tried to fight. It made no difference. The Korath did not kill them. That would have been mercy. Instead, they loaded them onto transports like livestock. Men and women were separated. Children pulled from their mothers' arms. The screaming was constant, a wall of terror that filled every recording. One Korath spoke in broken human language as the colonists were herded past. Good quality. Healthy organs. Long harvest period. The Dominion thanks you for your contribution. Junho stopped breathing. Organs. The Korath were harvesting organs. Human organs were compatible with their biology. Human lifespans were long enough to provide years of extraction before the body failed. The colonists were not prisoners. They were crops. The final recording was from a small storage room. Soyeon had hidden there, avoiding the initial sweep. She sat on the floor with a camera she had taken from the science lab, her face pale but determined. "My name is Park Soyeon," she said to the camera. "I am a xenobiologist on the colony ship Hangul's Promise." 312 people were aboard this vessel. As of now, most have been taken by Korath forces. I have hidden myself to document what is happening. She paused, took a shaky breath, and continued. The Korath are taking us to a place they call Grayenhold. It is a processing station in the inner systems. Based on what I have overheard, they intend to keep us alive as long as possible while extracting our organs for transplantation. Hearts, kidneys, livers, anything they need. We are nothing to them. Less than animals. We are spare parts. Her voice cracked. She wiped her eyes angrily and kept speaking. I am going to transmit this location and hope someone receives it. I am going to hide this recording in the black box. And I am going to let them take me, because I would rather be with my people than die alone in this room. She stood up and looked directly at the camera. Her eyes were red from crying, but there was steel in them too. A hardness that Junho recognized. If you find this, whoever you are, do not mourn us. We are not dead yet. Come for us. Come to Grain, hold and burn it to the ground, and make them remember why they should have left humanity alone. She reached forward and turned off the camera. The recording ended. No one spoke for a long time. Junho sat at the head of the table, his hands flat on the surface, his eyes staring at nothing. Inside him, something was changing. The grief was still there, but it was being pushed aside by something older and colder and far more dangerous. Rage. He thought of the colonists in their cells. He thought of doctors with 4 arms cutting into human bodies. He thought of children crying for parents who could not help them. And he thought of his sister, brave and brilliant and alone, walking willingly into that nightmare so that someone might know the truth. Send the footage to Earth, Junho said finally. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. Send it to every news station, every government channel, every private network. Send it to every human being in the galaxy. Taiho looked at him. What are you planning? Junho stood up. I am planning to start a war. He walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere among them was Grayenhold. Somewhere among them was his sister and 311 other souls waiting to be saved or to be avenged. They thought we would not come, he said. They thought we were too weak, too afraid, too divided. They thought they could take our families and use them like cattle, and we would do nothing. He turned to face his crew. They were wrong. The footage spread across human space like fire through dry grass. Within 6 hours of transmission, every major news network was playing the recordings. Within 12 hours, people on every human world had seen Soyeon's final message. Within 24 hours, the galaxy changed forever. On Earth, crowds gathered in city centers to watch the footage on massive screens. They stood in silence as the screaming filled the air, as Korath soldiers dragged children from their mothers, as the truth of what had happened to the Hanuel's promise became impossible to ignore. Some people wept. Some people shouted in anger. Some people simply stood and stared, their faces empty with shock. The response from the Korath Dominion came quickly. Their ambassador, a tall gray creature named Thok-Vola, addressed the Galactic Council with calm arrogance. "The humans entered Dominion space without proper authorization," he said. "Their colony ship crossed into our territory illegally. According to Korath law, they became property of the Dominion. We processed them accordingly. This is an internal matter. We reject any outside interference." The Galactic Council, a gathering of representatives from 200 species, responded with cautious words. The Korath were powerful. Their fleet was vast. Their technology was advanced. A war against them would cost millions of lives and might not even succeed. "We urge all parties to pursue diplomatic solutions," the council chairperson announced. "Violence will only create more suffering." On Earth, people watched this statement and something broke inside them. Humanity had joined the galactic community only 60 years ago. They were newcomers, still learning the rules, still trying to find their place among ancient civilizations. They had been told to be patient, to be polite, to avoid conflicts they could not win. They had been told that strength came from compromise. But 312 of their people were being cut apart in a Korath station. 47 of those people were children, and the galaxy was telling them to be diplomatic. For 6 days, Earth was silent. No official statements. No military movements. No diplomatic meetings. The silence was so complete that some alien observers wondered if humanity had simply given up, accepting their weakness against a superior power. They were very wrong. During those 6 days, every human shipyard in the galaxy shut down communications with the outside world. Mining colonies stopped selling their ore to alien buyers and began around-the-clock operations. Civilian freighters quietly returned to human space and were met by military officers who offered them a choice. Retired soldiers received messages asking them to report for duty. Weapons factories that had been producing commercial goods suddenly remembered how to make things that killed. On the 7th day, Fleet Admiral Beak Nari broadcast a message across every frequency in the galaxy. She was a small woman, gray-haired and soft-spoken, with the kind of face that made people think of grandmothers. But her eyes were cold, and her voice carried a weight that made even the most arrogant species pay attention. "To the Korath Dominion and the galactic community," she said. 7 days ago, we learned that 312 of our citizens were taken from their ship and are currently being harvested for organs in a Korath facility. We have watched the recordings. We have heard the screams. We have seen the faces of our children as they were torn from their parents. She paused. The galaxy held its breath. The Korath call this legal. The Galactic Council calls for diplomacy. We call it an act of war. And humanity has decided how to respond. Behind her, a massive screen lit up with images. Human warships. Hundreds of them. Thousands of them. Every vessel the United Earth Fleet had ever built, gathered into a single armada that stretched across space like a swarm of angry stars. "We are coming for our people," Admiral Beak continued. "We are coming to Gray and Hold. We are coming with every ship, every soldier, every weapon we possess. And we will not stop until our citizens are free, and every Korath who participated in their suffering is dead." She leaned closer to the camera. "You took our children. You harvested our families like grain. You thought us young and weak and afraid. You were wrong. You woke something in us that you do not understand. And now you will learn what happens when humanity has nothing left to lose." The transmission ended. The galaxy erupted in chaos. The Korath Dominion dismissed the threat as a bluff. No species in galactic history had ever mobilized their entire military force for a rescue mission. It was irrational. It was suicidal. Surely the humans would realize this and negotiate. But humanity did not negotiate. Instead, ships continued to join the fleet. Captain Park Jun-ho, who had been racing back toward human space with his evidence, found the iron wake surrounded by friendly vessels. Not military ships. Cargo freighters. Mining haulers. Personal yachts. Private citizens who had seen the footage and decided they could not stay home. A 5 message came through from one of the freighters. Captain Park, this is Kim Ha-jin. I'm a merchant pilot. I've got no weapons, but I've got engines and cargo space. My daughter watches your sister's message every night before she sleeps. She asks me why we're not doing something. So I'm here. Tell me what you need. Jun-ho did not know what to say. He simply said, fall in behind us. We're going to Greyhold. Across human space, similar scenes played out. Teachers left their classrooms. Doctors left their hospitals. Farmers left their fields. Not everyone could fight, but everyone could contribute. Factories produced ammunition in triple shifts. Farms sent food to feed the soldiers. Schools taught children to be proud of their species and to never forget what had been done. The fleet grew. And grew. And grew. Dr. Korath watched with increasing concern. Their intelligence reports said human forces outnumbered their expectations by a factor of 10. This was not a military response. This was a civilization mobilizing for total war. Thok Voller sent a message to Earth Command. The Korath Dominion was willing to discuss terms. Perhaps some of the humans could be returned. Perhaps reparations could be paid. Perhaps this could all be settled without bloodshed. Admiral Beek's reply was short. Every human returned. Every person responsible punished. Every facility destroyed. This is not negotiable. The Korath rejected these terms. They believed their fleet was still stronger. They believed humans would retreat when they saw the true cost of battle. They believed, as they had always believed, that younger species were cowardly and weak. They were about to learn otherwise. On the morning of the attack, Jun-ho stood on the bridge of the Iron Wake and looked at the fleet around him. 5,000 warships, 10,000 support vessels, 20,000 civilian craft that had been armed with whatever weapons they could find. A tide of metal and fury stretching across the darkness. Minji walked up beside him. Are you ready? He thought about his sister. He thought about the names written in blood on the cargo bay wall. He thought about the 47 children who had been ripped from their families and carried into hell. I was ready the moment I heard her voice, he said. The fleet jumped to light speed. Ahead of them, Greyhold waited. Behind them, Earth burned with a fire that would not go out until justice was done. Humanity was coming, and they brought all their anger with them. The Korath were waiting for them. Their fleet had assembled in the space around Greyhold, a defensive formation that stretched across the system like a wall of gray steel. 2,000 warships, each one massive, each one bristling with weapons that had destroyed 100 worlds over 10,000 years. Behind them hung the station itself, a rotating sphere of black metal where human bodies were being taken apart piece by piece. The Korath commander, Admiral Thok Maru, watched the human fleet emerge from lightspeed and felt a cold satisfaction. The insects had come. Now they would be crushed. They outnumber us, his censor officer reported. 3-1 in warships. 5-1 if we count their support vessels. Numbers mean nothing, Thok Maru replied. They are children playing at war. We have conquered species older than their entire civilization. This battle will be over within the hour. He gave the order to advance. The Korath fleet moved forward in perfect formation, their weapons charging, their shields glowing with power, On the Iron Wake, Captain Junho watched them come. His hands were steady on the armrests of his chair, his eyes fixed on the enemy. Somewhere on that station was his sister. Somewhere in that darkness, she was waiting for him. "All ships," he said into the open channel. "This is Captain Park Junho. You all know why we're here. You all know what they did. I'm not going to give you speeches about glory or honor or duty. I'm just going to tell you what I told my crew when we left Earthspace." He paused. "We're going to get our people back. And we're going to make the Korath wish they had never heard the name humanity." The fleet surged forward. The Korath expected the humans to fight the way other species fought. Careful formations. Strategic retreats when losses mounted. Calculated moves designed to preserve forces and win through superior positioning. They did not expect what happened next. Human ships did not retreat. They did not calculate acceptable losses. They did not stop. When their shields failed, they kept firing. When their weapons went offline, they rammed their hulls into enemy vessels. When their ships were crippled and dying, pilots ejected into the vacuum and continued shooting with handheld weapons. Tiny sparks of defiance against giants. A human destroyer named the Soul's Pride took 17 direct hits that should have destroyed it. Its captain, a woman named Choi Yerim, was bleeding from a head wound and half her bridge crew was dead. Instead of retreating, she ordered her engines to maximum and drove her burning ship directly into the side of a Korath carrier. The explosion took out 3 enemy vessels. Choi Yerim's final transmission was picked up by every ship in both fleets. "For my children, for all our children, make them pay." Similar scenes played out across the battlefield. Human ships that should have surrendered instead fought to the last soldier. Human commanders who should have ordered retreats instead led charges. Human pilots who should have died instead found ways to keep fighting, to keep killing, to keep advancing. The Iron Wake was in the heart of it. Junho commanded from his bridge as Korath weapons hammered his shields and Taiho threaded the ship through impossible spaces. Yunji kept the engines running despite damage that should have left them dead in space. Minji fired every weapon they had until the guns overheated, then found ways to fire them anyway. "Captain," Taiho reported, "we've got 3 enemy cruisers on our tail. Our shields are down to 12%. We can't take another hit." Junho looked at his tactical display. The cruisers were massive, each one 10 times the size of the Iron Wake. Running was impossible. Surrender was not an option. "How fast can we accelerate?" he asked. Taiho blinked. "Sir, how fast?" "If I push the engines beyond safe limits, we could hit 0.8 light speed within 2 minutes. Do it. Head straight for the lead cruiser." Taiho understood. His face went pale, but his hands were steady as he entered the commands. The Iron Wake's engines screamed as they accelerated toward the enemy vessel. The Korath captain on the cruiser watched the tiny human ship racing toward him. He laughed. Did they think they could ram him? His ship was protected by shields that could stop a meteor. One small vessel would barely scratch the surface. He was wrong. The Iron Wake was not aiming for his shields. It was aiming for the gap between the shield generators, a tiny vulnerability that would have been invisible to any species that thought rationally about combat. But humans did not think rationally when their families were at stake. They thought like predators. They thought like hunters. They thought like creatures who had spent millions of years learning to kill things bigger than themselves. At the last moment, Taiho pulled the ship into a spin that should have torn it apart. The Iron Wake corkscrewed through the gap in the shields and opened fire at point-blank range. Minji's weapons tore through the cruiser's unprotected hull. The explosions ripped the enemy ship in half. The Iron Wake shot out the other side, trailing fire and debris. Half its systems were offline. A quarter of its hull was breached. But it was still flying, and the crew was still alive. "Damage report," Junho demanded. Yoonji's voice came through the intercom, hoarse and tired. We're held together by prayers and spite, Captain. But I can keep us moving. Then keep us moving. We're not done yet. The battle raged for 19 hours. 19 hours of fire and death and screaming. 19 hours of human ships dying and human soldiers fighting. 19 hours of the Korath, learning what it meant to face a species that would not stop. 2/3 of the Korath fleet was destroyed. The rest tried to surrender. Admiral Beak accepted their surrender, but did not stop the advance. The fleet pressed on toward Greyhold. The station's defenders sent desperate messages. They offered to release the humans. They offered to pay any price. They begged for mercy. There was no mercy. Minji led the ground assault. 5,000 human soldiers in combat armor stormed the station, fighting through corridors designed for creatures twice their size. Every room was a battle. Every corner was an ambush. But the humans did not stop. They could not stop. Not when they could hear the screaming of their people echoing through the walls. They found the processing chambers in the center of the station. The doors were massive, sealed with codes that the Korath believed were unbreakable. Yoonji broke them in 4 minutes. What they found inside would haunt them forever. Hundreds of humans floated in medical tanks, suspended in green fluid, tubes running into their bodies. Their eyes were open. Their mouths were moving. They were awake, aware, feeling everything as machines harvested their organs one piece at a time. Some had been there for months. Some were missing arms or legs or sections of their torsos. All of them were alive. Minji fell to her knees. Junho walked past her, moving through the rows of tanks, searching each face with desperate hope. He found children suspended next to parents, couples floating side by side, families kept together even as they were taken apart. And then he found her. Soin floated in a tank near the back of the room. Her eyes were closed. Her face was pale. A long scar ran down her torso where they had opened her again and again. But her heart was still beating. She was still alive. Junho pressed his hand against the glass. His voice cracked as he spoke. I'm here, Soin. I came for you. I'm here. He turned to the medical team that had followed them in. Get them out. Get all of them out, now. The extraction took 12 hours. Each tank had to be opened carefully, each patient stabilized before transport. Some did not survive the process. Their bodies had been too damaged, pushed too far beyond what even human stubbornness could endure. They died surrounded by their rescuers, finally free but too broken to continue. 217 colonists survived. 95 did not, including 31 children. When the last survivor was carried to a rescue ship, Yoonji walked back into the processing chamber. She placed charges on every wall, every tank, every machine that had been used to torture human beings for 18 months. Then she walked out and sealed the door behind her. Greyhold burned. The explosion lit up the system like a second sun, visible from worlds light years away. A monument of fire for 95 souls who would never go home. Junho carried his sister to the Iron Wake's medical bay. She was unconscious, barely breathing, her body more scar tissue than healthy flesh. But she was alive. She was free. And the Korath would never hurt another human again. The war was over in 3 weeks. What remained of the Korath fleet scattered like leaves before a storm. Their client species, watching the footage from Greyhold, abandoned them overnight. Trading partners broke contracts. Allies refused to answer calls. The Korath Dominion, which had ruled their region of space for 10,000 years, collapsed so quickly that historians would debate the exact moment of their fall for centuries to come. But the galaxy was not watching the Korath. The galaxy was watching humanity. Every species with access to communications technology had recorded the Battle of Greyhold. They had watched human ships burn and die and keep fighting. They had seen pilots eject into vacuum and continue shooting. They had witnessed commanders order suicidal charges and crews follow without hesitation. They had observed what happened when a species young enough to be called primitive decided that nothing in the universe mattered more than bringing their people home. It was not the victory that terrified them. Any species might win a war with enough numbers and luck. It was how humanity won. It was the footage of human soldiers weeping as they stormed the station, tears streaming down their faces, even as they killed everything in their path. It was the recording of a young pilot laughing, actually laughing, as her ship was torn apart around her. Her final words being, "Tell my mother I love her and I took 6 of them with me." It was the image of Captain Park Junho carrying his sister out of that hell, his face empty of everything except a cold, terrible purpose. The Galactic Council met in emergency session. 200 species debated what they had witnessed. Some argued for sanctions against humanity. Some demanded apologies. Some suggested that perhaps the Korath had deserved what happened to them. But most of them were simply afraid. Ambassador Lee Dahi represented humanity at the council. She was a small woman, soft-voiced and polite, the kind of diplomat other species usually ignored. But when she rose to speak, the council chamber fell silent. "You have asked to understand what happened at Greyhound," she began. "You have questioned our tactics. You have criticized our proportionality. You have wondered why we did not negotiate, why we did not count our losses, why we did not retreat when the mathematics of war said we should." She paused and looked around the chamber. 200 species watched her with expressions ranging from hostility to terror. "Let me explain," she said. "The Korath took 312 of our citizens. They took families. They took children. They cut them apart while they were still alive and harvested their organs like crops. And when we discovered this, you advised us to be diplomatic. You told us to be patient. You suggested that perhaps, if we negotiated carefully, we might get some of our people back." Her voice hardened. "We did not negotiate because there was nothing to negotiate. Those were our people. Every single one of them belonged to us, not as property, but as family. You spend millennia treating war as economics. Acceptable losses, favorable exchanges, strategic retreats. You calculate the cost of conflict and decide whether the price is worth paying." She shook her head. "We are not like you. We do not calculate the value of our children. We do not measure the worth of our parents in resources and territory. When you hurt one of us, you face all of us. Not because it is logical, not because it is strategic, because we cannot do otherwise. It is not a choice. It is what we are." The council was silent. "You have called us young," Dahi continued. "You have called us primitive. You have laughed at our short history and our small territory and our limited technology. But you have forgotten something important. We did not build empires. We did not conquer stars. We did not become great by making logical decisions and calculating acceptable losses. We survived because we never left our people behind. We survived because when the darkness came for one of us, all of us fought back." She stepped forward. "The Korra thought we were weak because we are young. They were wrong. We are not weak. We are not tame. We are not safe. We are a species that crossed an ocean on wooden boats because someone said there might be land on the other side. We climbed mountains that should have killed us. We explored jungles that ate entire expeditions. We went to space in machines held together with prayers and hope because we could not stand the idea of boundaries we had not crossed." Her eyes swept across the assembly. "Do not mistake our kindness for weakness. Do not mistake our patience for fear. We came to this galaxy hoping to find friends. We hope to learn from older species. We hope to build something beautiful among the stars. But we will not be harvested. We will not be hunted. We will not be treated as livestock by creatures who have forgotten what it means to love something more than themselves. She turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing, she said. We recovered 95 bodies from Greyhold. 95 of our people who did not survive. 31 of them were children. We have the names of every Korath official involved in the program. Every doctor, every guard, every bureaucrat who signed a form or approved a shipment. And we will find them. We will hunt them across this galaxy for as long as it takes. Because that is what we do. We remember, and we do not forgive. She walked out of the chamber. The council did not sanction humanity. They did not demand apologies. They passed a resolution condemning the Korath and began drafting new laws, protecting the citizens of all species from organ harvesting. It was not enough, but it was a start. On Earth, life slowly returned to normal. The fleet came home. Soldiers returned to their families. Ships were repaired. The dead were buried. Park Soin spent 3 months in a hospital. Her body had been too damaged to heal completely. She would never walk without pain again. She would never have children. She would carry the scars of Greyhold until the day she died. But she was alive. She was free. And she was surrounded by family who loved her. Junho visited her every day. He brought her flowers and books and recordings of ocean waves because she had always loved the sea. He held her hand while she slept and told her stories about their childhood when she was awake. Sometimes she cried. Sometimes he cried. Sometimes they simply sat in silence and let the peace of being together fill the empty spaces inside them. When she was finally released from the hospital, Junho took her home. He had bought a small house near the ocean, far from the cities and the noise and the memories. He planned to open a restaurant, nothing fancy, just good food and quiet nights. He was tired of war. He was tired of fighting. He wanted to cook meals for people he loved and watch the sun set over the water. So Yeon supported his dream. She helped him design the menu. She planted a garden in the backyard. She sat on the porch in the evenings and watched her brother work, and sometimes she smiled. And sometimes that was enough. Minji went back to the fleet. She became an instructor at the combat academy, teaching young soldiers the tactics that had won the Battle of Greyhold. She was hard on her students, but fair. She never forgot a name. She never lost a trainee. And every year, on the anniversary of the battle, she gathered her classes and told them the story of the 95 who did not come home. Taiho flew cargo routes for a while. He told everyone he was happy, that he did not miss the war, that he enjoyed the peaceful life of a merchant pilot. But sometimes, late at night, he found himself staring at the stars and remembering the screaming of engines and the flash of weapons fire. He was not sure if he missed the war itself or simply the person he had been during it. He was not sure it mattered. Eung built things. Bridges and buildings and machines that made life easier for people who had suffered. She never spoke about what she had seen in the processing chamber. She never needed to. The look in her eyes said everything. Across the galaxy, a new phrase entered common use among alien species. When they spoke of humanity, they no longer called them young or primitive or weak. They did not mock their short history or their small territory or their limited technology. They called them the ones who remembered. It was a warning and a compliment. A reminder that humanity never forgot an injury and never abandoned a friend. Other species learned to be careful around humans. They learned to be honest. They learned that breaking faith with humanity was the worst mistake any civilization could make, because humans remembered everything. The kindness and the cruelty, the friendship and the betrayal, the children taken and the children saved. They carried it all, every memory, every name, every face. and they never let go. It made them dangerous. It made them unstoppable. It made them something the galaxy had never seen before. And somewhere in a small house by the ocean, Park Soin sat on her porch and watched the sunset. Her brother was in the kitchen, cooking dinner, humming a song their mother used to sing. The smell of food drifted through the open window. The waves crashed against the shore. She was alive. She was free. She was home, and she would never forget.